I have a question for you. Who's the most powerful family in Britain? 99% of people would say it's the British royal family. But here's the shocker. Anyone who gives that answer would be dead wrong. Most people don't know this, but there's another British family whose wealth, power, and influence overshadows even that of the mighty royal family. This other family controls a huge land, property, and a farming empire that stretches as far as the eye can see. In fact, this other family is so incredibly wealthy that they own half of the land and buildings in the city of London. How is that even possible? London is the capital of a country. It's one of the most important cities in the world. How could one family own half of London? There's an answer to that question, but it's dark, dramatic, and scandalous. So, the mysterious family we're talking about is the Grosvenors. They're rich, powerful, and most importantly, they are masters of opportunity. For hundreds of years, the Grosvenors clan has made billions of dollars by simply taking advantage of ordinary opportunities. Marriage, sickness, war, destruction, and death have each served as a stepping stone in the Grosvenors' ascension from poverty to power. The Grosvenors didn't create these good or bad situations. They simply mastered the art of winning the game of life, no matter what cards they were dealt. So what's the story behind the multi-billion-dollar Grosvenor fortune? Where did it come from? What did they do to get it? And how come their money never runs out? This is the most captivating rags to riches tale in British history. And if you have any dreams of being rich and powerful, you must watch this video to the end. Because the Grosvenor story is a masterclass on how you can use any opportunity, big or small, to fatten your wallet. Here's how the Grosvenors rode the waves of opportunity to become Britain's richest family. Their story begins with a bloody war that happened 1,000 years ago. Let's go back in time to the year 1066, England. It was an era of chopping heads, shooting arrows, and hanging traitors. But that year, there was only one thing on everyone's lips. War is coming. And the person bringing that war was a savage fellow called William the Conqueror. William was sailing towards England with 600 ships, carrying 7,000 angry soldiers. War was truly coming. But why was William invading England? It was because William believed he was the rightful king of England, and he was coming to claim his throne. The backstory is that the old king, Edward, had died without an heir. However, King Edward had decreed that the throne should go to William after his death. Unfortunately, William wasn't in England when the king died. And in William's absence, a nobleman named Harold Godwinson stole the throne, crowning himself King Harold II. So William assembled an army and set sail for England. He would either claim his rightful crown or die trying. What followed was a battle of epic proportions. William's forces clashed with Harold's goons on a muddy field. But in the end, it was William who secured the victory, and in the process became the new King of England. One of William's soldiers was a handsome man named Gilbert le Grosvenor. Gilbert le Grosvenor is the founding father of the Grosvenor dynasty. In addition to being related to William, Gilbert also played a crucial role in helping win the battle. As a reward, William gave Gilbert land and privileges in England. And as William ruled as king, Gilbert and his sons enjoyed a prominent position in the English court. This is how the Grosvenor family got their first taste of money and power. In 1665, a killer roamed the streets of England, yet no one could stop it. That was because the killer wasn't human. It was a killer sickness, a killer disease, a killer plague. Officially known as the Great Plague of London, it claimed the lives of thousands in the city. Roughly 15% of people in London died from this disease. But how did the plague begin? The earliest case was recorded in the spring of 1665 in a parish. Before long, the plague was so widespread that it was killing about 1,000 people a week, and it showed no signs of slowing down.
As the plague raged on throughout 1665, new orders were issued by the Lord Mayor to clean up the filthy streets and keep the air sweet-smelling. Teams of men were contracted to exterminate the thousands of dogs and cats which roamed the streets and fed on the mounds of rubbish. It's estimated that over 60,000 cats and dogs were killed in this way during 1665.
It was so bad that King Charles II abandoned his palace and fled London. Actually, anyone who was rich, like doctors, lawyers, and merchants, also ran for their lives, leaving the poor to suffer. The plague tortured London for roughly a year. When the dust settled, about 69,000 people had been reported dead. The Grosvenors survived this bleak period without too much damage. However, what came immediately after the plague was something far worse, and no one, not even the Grosvenors, could escape. It was called the Great Fire of London, and when they called it a Great Fire, they weren't exaggerating. Back then, London was packed with wooden houses lining the narrow streets. The houses were made from timber, coated with a flammable substance called pitch, and roofed with thatch. And last but not least, there was no fire brigade in London.
For centuries, timber-framed dwellings and the naked flame were uneasy bedfellows. London was, quite literally, a tinderbox waiting only for a deadly spark.
Considering this combination of factors, anyone could have predicted what was going to happen next. The fire started on Sunday morning at 1 a.m. in a bakery, while the baker and his family were sleeping upstairs. It was caused by a spark from the oven falling onto a pile of wood nearby.
Ignited a pile of twigs stored in the bakehouse. Unnoticed, it started to take hold.
Thomas Farriner's teenage son and apprentice, also called Thomas, woke up. He realized the ground floor was on fire and immediately woke up his family who was sleeping upstairs.
Trapped by the smoke, their only escape route was to crawl out of an upstairs window and onto a neighbour's roof, raising the alarm at the tops of their voices.
Before long, the fire had totally engulfed the bakery and was ripping through the city of London. The fire raged for 2 full days. London looked like one giant bonfire as the citizens tried to use buckets of water to quench the flame.
This map shows how the fire had spread from Sunday the 2nd to Monday the 3rd and to Tuesday the 4th of September. On Tuesday, the flames engulfed 2 of the city's most impressive buildings, St. Paul's Cathedral and the Royal Exchange.
To control the situation, the Navy started blowing up houses in the path of the fire. The hope was that this would create a space to stop the fire spreading from house to house. This plan worked, and the fire was mostly under control by Wednesday. However, the Great Fire of London destroyed a large part of the city, including about 13,000 houses. The damage was so bad that London would need to be rebuilt from scratch. Within a few days, 3 different plans were presented to the king for the rebuilding of the city. However, in the aftermath of this destruction and despair, the Grosvenors seized an opportunity which practically doubled their family fortune. 1677, London. Barely 10 years after the Great Fire ravaged the city, the stench of burnt timber still hung heavy in the air. One man had found a reason to be happy. In the midst of all this sorrow, Sir Thomas Grosvenor announced that he was getting married. However, Thomas Grosvenor was so excited about the wedding that it seemed he had just won the lottery. And, all things considered, this marriage was equal to winning the lottery, and it was because of who Thomas was marrying. Thomas Grosvenor's bride was Mary Davies, a wide-eyed, ordinary-looking young lady. But despite Mary's ordinary looks, there was something that made her extremely special: her dowry. In those days, it was customary for a man to receive some gifts from his bride's family as some sort of reward for marrying her. And what Thomas was going to receive from marrying Mary was amazing. Mary's dowry included vast stretches of land in prime locations around London. This triggered rumors that Thomas Grosvenor didn't truly love Mary. He was just marrying her for her land. However, the gossip didn't discourage Thomas. On the contrary, it made him more confident in his decision. After all, marriage was a strategic alliance, and marrying Mary and getting her land was the most strategic move of all. Thomas and Mary had an elegant wedding, and as expected, the lands in Mary's dowry were absorbed by the Grosvenor family. The Grosvenors now had more land under their control, which meant more money flowing into their coffers. Thomas and Mary Grosvenor had many children and enjoyed a long and happy marriage. In the next chapter, we'll meet Richard Grosvenor, the charismatic son of Thomas and Mary. And we'll discover how Richard used the family land to propel the Grosvenors from millionaire to billionaire status. The 18th century was a period of rapid growth in London. The old wooden structures which the fire had destroyed were being replaced with houses made from rocks and stones. London was being rebuilt on a grander and more ambitious scale. However, there was no one more ambitious than Richard Grosvenor, the son of Thomas and Mary. Richard wanted to build a high-class residential estate on the Grosvenor family land west of London. He wanted his estate to be a status symbol, a beacon of sophistication, a playground for the elite, where the upper class of Britain's richest families would beg to stay. In 1710, Richard began the project, converting those muddy fields into a luxury residential estate that would require many years of work and many bags of money. However, one building at a time, the estate came to life. And soon, everyone in London looked west, awed by the magnificent construction that was underway. Richard called his plush estate Mayfair, and it quickly became the jewel of London.
Take, for instance, London's elegant Mayfair. On its fringe is the Park. The Park to a Londoner is, of course, Hyde Park. 600 acres of wide open spaces where once was a racecourse and even a golf course, where kings used to hunt and play their daily round, where today commoners in their thousands come to forget the daily round. Park Lane, one-time home of millionaires, looks gay in its summer dress of green.
English lords and ladies abandoned their outdated houses and relocated to the new mansions, townhouses, and green squares of Mayfair.
A statue of the poet Byron, just inside the park, revives memories of one of the early Mayfair dandies. In the summer, the flowers are a riot of colour, and the gardeners tuck them up so attractively in their little beds. The settings blend perfectly with the blooms.
But the Grosvenors didn't stop there. The Grosvenors had proven they were masters of high-class residential design, and they had more family land waiting to be developed. The Grosvenors went on to build another luxury estate called Belgravia. Constructing estates made the Grosvenors filthy rich. However, they still weren't satisfied, and the next generation of Grosvenors took things to a whole new level. The Grosvenors went on a building spree. The family already owned a lot of land, and they constructed buildings, estates, and castles on these properties. But what were they going to do with all the money they earned from leasing out their buildings? Simple. Buy more land and build more property. Within a few years, the Grosvenors became Britain's largest property developers, owning half of the buildings and land in London. Carrying the Grosvenor name didn't just make you important, it made you invincible. Of course, the most powerful family in Britain was the British royal family. However, as the Grosvenors' wealth and status increased, they were rubbing shoulders with the king and queen. Their vast landholdings, particularly in the West End of London, made them prominent figures in British society. Therefore, it was no surprise when the Queen created a special title to be conferred on the Grosvenor dynasty. In 1874, Queen Victoria bestowed upon Hugh Grosvenor the title of Duke of Westminster. This title is special because it is the most recent dukedom conferred on someone who is not directly related to the British royal family. By giving the Grosvenors this title, Queen Victoria acknowledged their status, granting them a place among the highest ranks of the British royalty. Hundreds of years down the line, the Grosvenors have established themselves as the most powerful family in Britain. The family fortune is now in the hands of Hugh Grosvenor, a 20-something-year-old who inherited the title of Duke of Westminster. Hugh is chairman of the family company, overseeing the enormous land, assets, and investments of the Grosvenor estate. He's also close friends with the British royal family. The Grosvenors continue to expand their empire to the corners of the earth. They have new projects underway in North America, Hawaii, Australia, Japan, and continental Europe. The Grosvenors keep getting wealthier. At this rate, their fortune will never run out. The only question will be, who's next in line to inherit all this money? To discover more about the history of rich families, watch this video on how this billionaire family lost everything.